Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
And we are the Two Ewes of Two Ewes Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, maybe a little crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
You can find photos and links at our blog.
And our blog is twoewesdyeing.blogspot.com.
And we have a group on Ravelry of the same name.
Yes, check us out. I am 100 Projects on Ravelry and Instagram.
And I am M. Fusel on Instagram and Ravelry.
So, we hope you enjoy the episode. Well, hello, Marsha.
Hi, Kelly.
How's it going in Seattle?
It's going great. It's kind of
Good.
nice today. It's been kind of iffy. It's always kind of iffy in the morning, and then it turns out being kind of nice. So it's nice. So I'm just sitting here at my dining room table today.
All right.
So anyway, what have you been working on?
Well, drum roll. Drum roll.
Here,
not a finished project.
Can you hear that on the dining room table?
Yes. I have finished one half of the pair of Civil War socks.
Oh, the victory!
Yes.
Victory is at hand.
Yes, and let me just tell you, if someone were knitting these Civil War socks based on the U.S. Sanitary Commission pattern, because they were soliciting socks for the troops, I'm sure the soldier would have just worn whatever sock they got. But since I'm knitting these for Robert, I am doing some customizing of them, and that has been a little bit painful.
Oh, yes. And do you want to describe how painful it's been? What have you had to do?
I will. So the socks are long. You measure for the ribbing at like 13 inches up the leg. And so I did that, and I cast on the ribbing, and the ribbing was great. He loved how it fit. And then I did the leg, and I was pretty sure that I was going to have to decrease because the number of stitches in this sock was quite a bit more than the number of stitches that I've used when I've made socks for him before. So I made a couple of decreases, and then I knit all the way down to the heel. This was on our trip on the road. In fact, most of it was on the road to Eugene, and then during the first day while I was at the judging. I went all the way down the leg, and I did the heel flap, and I did the heel turn, and the heel flap was painful because I was trying to do it according to the pattern, and it's just a slip stitch heel flap. So that's not a problem. That's what I usually do, except that kind of is the problem because in this pattern, it tells you to slip on the seaming side, which that's the purl side. They call it seaming. Okay. In the pattern. So you slip on the purl side and knit on the knit side of the heel flap. Well, normally I go slip knit, slip knit, slip knit all the way across the heel flap and then purl back. Yeah. Right. And so I would be going and I would be slipping on the purl side, and then I'd turn to the knit side and I'd start knitting, and then I'd get distracted by listening to the judging, and then I'd be going slip knit, slip knit, slip knit, slip knit. So I don't know how many of the rows of the heel I had to do multiple times because, it was close to what I normally do, but not what I normally do. Close enough that I would get into autopilot and do the wrong thing. So that was a little bit painful, but totally my fault. And I thought about it, and I thought, it's the same fabric if you slip on the knit side or slip on the purl side. As long as you're just slipping on one of those sides, you get the same exact fabric. So I could just do what I normally do. But then I thought, but that's kind of the point of these is to follow this pattern of the Civil War socks. Right. So anyway, then he tries them on. Once I got the heel turned, I have him try them on, and the leg is baggy. And he's like, oh, it'll be fine. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, I don't want to give you a sock with a baggy leg. I mean, I think he would have liked it just fine, but I had already done a couple of decreases, which weren't in the pattern at the top, and I thought, you know what? I just need to do more calf decreases. So I ripped it all the way back to about the ribbing and 2 inches. put in more decreases, like a decrease every inch. Well, decreases every inch going down the leg. And then did the heel flap and gusset and turn, and it was fine. That was great. So then I go all the way down the foot and I start the toe. And I think I did the toe 3 times. Before, it's a round, it's like the decreases in the toe on this pattern are like you start and you do a decrease every 7 stitches, and then the next time you decrease every 6 stitches, and then the next.
Oh, so it's like a hat.
Yes. So the toe at the end turns out like a hat instead of like the foot I normally do, where you just decrease on every edge.
Right.
And so I thought, well, this would be good because he always laughs about the toes of hand knit socks and how they look pointed. And I thought, well, this is perfect because this will look round and he'll really like it. But it wasn't long enough. And then when I elongated it so it would be long enough for his toes, then it looked pointed again. And it looked really funny. I mean, it was worse than... it was very pointed. It was like a very super acute triangle, like a missile. On the bottom of his sock.
I have to interrupt to say I like all of this, or these at war terms where you kind of are at war with these socks and the toe look like a missile. And
yeah. Oh goodness. So anyway, I finally decided I wasn't going to get what I needed by changing the toe and making the toe longer. What I needed was to make the foot longer, even though his foot starts to narrow fairly early. Like, I followed the dimensions of how to do the foot, and then you put on a toe that goes that last few inches. Anyway, so I have followed the pattern. I have added things. I figure I'm sort of like a Civil War wife who's making these socks for her husband and putting in all the things she's learned over the years that he'll need in his socks, even though that's not the pattern. I'm thinking of it that way. So I'm not knitting these for an unknown soldier.
Right.
This is not the sock of the unknown soldier. Oh my gosh. So this is like I'm like Ma'am in, isn't that her name, in Little Women?
Yes.
Making the sock for her husband, who she knows very well, instead of the stranger soldier.
Yeah, she's intimately aware of his calf size and his ankle size.
Yes. He's not there to try them on, but anyway.
She just knows, yeah.
Right. So, and as long as I mentioned that, little aside, the book March is actually a really good book. It's written... Basically, it's like from the point of view of the husband, of the little, the father of the Little Women. I read it last summer. It was really good. But anyway, so 1 Civil War sock, mission accomplished. I haven't started the second one yet, but I'm really happy with it. It turned out really nice.
So, for the second one, do you know what you're going to do on the second one? Did you keep track of? I kept very careful notes, which
good. I don't usually do, and now I have 3 sets of very careful notes.
Do you know which one to follow?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, dear, yeah. I would take really super careful notes and then shoot, and then I have to scratch them all out and start over, so... Well, and you know what my notes look like on the side of my patterns, right?
Yes.
They're all in little chicken scratchy things on the side of the pattern.
It doesn't matter as long as you know what they are. It doesn't matter that anybody else can read them. Yeah.
And I know which chicken scratchy part I have to use. So, yes, I'm very happy with them.
Okay, cool.
And I encourage anyone who wants to make Civil War socks to try it, because the pattern is it's not any different. It's the same sock that I've made before, with the exception of the heel turning is slightly different. The toe is slightly different. But mostly what's different about it is they, just the way they describe things. Mm-hmm. So, and you know what else is interesting? You know how when we did the EDT, there was a faux seam on the side where you did a pearl stitch?
Oh, right, yeah. I know it. I was wondering why.
Yeah, I guess it's a design element. Anyway, this Civil War sock pattern has a faux seam down the back. Why did they think having a seam down the back of your sock was better than not?
Yeah, that's a complete mystery to me. Why?
Maybe the more quality socks, like the non-hand knit socks, had seams, and so if you were, I don't know, maybe someone who knows, maybe Lori, who knows her Civil War history, Boston Mama 3, will know why they wanted to make it look like there was a seam down the back of their sock.
Kind of like, remember the ladies during the Second World War when they couldn't get silk stockings? And they would put, like, makeup on their legs, and then they draw a seam down the back of their... they draw a line down the back of their legs to make it look like they had silk stockings on.
Yeah.
Or was it silk like they couldn't get, or was it nylon? I don't know, but there was something they couldn't get.
Anyway, they couldn't get stockings.
Yeah.
They had to go bare-legged. Now everybody goes bare-legged.
Yeah. Okay, Kelly, full disclosure, do you wear pantyhose anymore?
No.
I don't either. I have not worn a pair of pantyhose.
Well, okay, Marsha.
1992.
Ask me when was the last time I wore a skirt.
Okay, when was the last time you wore a skirt? Well, you wore a skirt in, what day did we go to the movie? When I was down there in September and we went to the movies, you wore a skirt.
I did?
It was... I'm sorry. I'm laughing. It was so momentous. I remember. Do you remember we went to see a Walk in the Woods?
Was it a long skirt?
A long skirt, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was one of my Stitch Fix things for my Washington D.C. trip.
Yeah. So this is such a big thing. I remembered that you
Yeah, and probably before that, the last time I wore, well, it was a dress, was Sarah's wedding in September 13th.
Sarah's wedding. And before that, it was your high school reunion.
Probably in 2000.
Oh, that's so funny.
Okay, little known facts about Kelly. She rarely wears a skirt or dress.
I can remember the last 3 times in the last 5 years that you wore.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Okay, back on topic.
Yes.
Okay, so is that all about, have we exhausted the Civil War socks?
We have. They are totally exhausted.
Okay, what other projects?
So I put a couple of rows on the shawl that I'm doing with the NoCKRs yarn. And let me talk a little bit about this because I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know how well it's going to work. But I'm using the pattern New Beginnings, and that's by Boo Knits. And it's a one-color shawl, but I'm using 2 colors. So I'm alternating the colors. And it has kind of alternating, or repeating bands. But I don't want to do the really lacy pattern with the variegated yarn. So when I got to the part that was really lacy, I decided to do the lacy pattern in the solid yarn and then do some garter stitch in the variegated yarn. The garter stitch stripes or sections are much smaller than the lacy portions. So I thought, I wonder if I could just do the lacy portion, but instead of the yarn overs, I do make ones. So there's no holes. So it's actually technically not lace. So I get the same sort of flow, sort of waving effect, but I don't have any lace holes. I'll just have like a stockinette band, but it'll be sort of that same wavy.
Okay.
So I'm doing that, and I think it's working. I only got through about a half of the lace repeat, using the make ones instead of yarn overs. So the jury is still out on how it's going to look. It's an experiment.
Worst case scenario, you rip it out if you don't like it. But, I mean,
and I don't want to have leftover yarn. And if I just used the variegated for the little bit of garter in between the lacy parts, I would end up with a lot of that variegated left. And I want to make it as big as I can. I'll keep people posted. I haven't gotten very far, but it was stalled a little bit because I wasn't sure what I was going to do to keep alternating the colors once the pattern sort of morphed into bands of lace. And once I figured it out, I started it. So that's my knitting. And then the rest of what I've been doing has been all spinning. CVM 3-ply, CVM bulky, lots of CVM still left, so I can't even think of it as a finished project. And then I've been doing the angora blends, spinning the angora blends. So no finished spin. I don't really like putting spinning in my project pages, because it never feels finished.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, if I just buy one braid of something and I just spin that one braid and then I ply it and I'm done, it's finished.
But if you have 12 pounds of fleece.
Correct. The spinning project is, how do you call it finished? So I have kind of stopped putting spinning projects in my project pages, unless it's like I'm spinning for a purpose and I'll know when I'm done.
Right.
So
yeah. No, I understand that. I don't really put my spinning projects in there either, now that I think about it. Unless it's... Yeah, I don't think I think I've put any other than Ben's socks.
It's demoralizing to me, I think. And it's supposed to be motivational. For knitting, my project pages are really motivational. But for spinning, they're sort of demoralizing. Yeah, right. So I just decided to stop doing that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, what about you?
Well, I've been busy working on things. I, too, have been spinning. I have the Shetland, that kind of golden Shetland that I bought, the Shetland rovings I bought at the Black Sheep Gathering. I've been working on that. So I now have 3 bobbins of singles that I'm not going to ply the 3. I'm going to just roll them into a ball and then do doubles.
2 plies.
2 plies, yeah. So I'm working on that, and I have a little bit more that I need to spin. And then what's up when I finish that, the next thing I'm going to spin is there's some roving that I bought when we went to Portland. My brother and I went to Portland in December to drop off some fleece at a processor, and we went to the Pendleton Mills outlet store in Portland, and I bought some Pendleton roving.
Okay.
So I'm gonna spin that. That's the next thing.
Is it natural color or is it?
It's natural color. Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't know Pendleton had rovings.
Yeah.
But maybe that's something you can't just buy. Maybe that's something you have to go to the outlet store. They only had one ball of it. One package of it. So it must have been sort of a one-off thing, maybe. I don't know.
It's probably like if they have mill-ends of the roving that they use to spin for the blankets, they put it for sale.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But the reason I decided I'm going to do that is I was actually thinking of processing washing that black fleece that I bought at Black Sheep Gathering, but I thought it's too much. I just want to spin so I can update pictures of, and the Tour de Fleece is about 3 weeks long?
Yeah.
So it's not really enough time to wash and process a fleece and spin. So that's what's up next. Anyway, and then other projects, that Fairfield Cardigan, remember I said I was working pretty diligently on it, trying to put in 5 to 6 rows every day. Well, I was so diligent and not paying attention that I knit 3/4 or an inch past the point where I'm supposed to start decreasing for the shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
So I just went, oh heck, and put it back in the bag. So what I need to do is... I don't want, I know, Kelly, you often are brave. Aunt Betty always laughs about how you're brave. You just pull the needles out and rip back. But because this has so many yarn overs and knit 3 together and... Oh, yeah,
I don't do that with lace.
I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to put in a lifeline or something, like 2 rows or a row from where I think it needs to be, so not much more to report on that. And then I just been working on the Havasu Falls, the shawl by Allison LoCicero. So it's very easy knitting because it's just stockinette and it has increases on the edges, both on the knit side and the purl side. But because it's very fine and it's dark, I find sometimes it's hard to knit in a social setting if there's not a lot of light. But anyway, it's coming along, but not a whole lot to. Yeah, not a whole lot to report on that.
I had that same problem. I know I've done a couple of lace weight things that were just stockinette, and I thought, oh, this will be perfect. And then, no, because big needles, teeny yarn, and then you drop a stitch or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is going to be a pretty one.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be nice. So anyway, I've been working on that, and then... my big project that I finally am going to start is, I'm calling it Frank's Spirit Yarn Afghan. And
yay.
This is yay! And as I mentioned in the last episode, I finally found the sweater that I had made for my dad. So I'm going to take it apart, unravel the whole thing, and I'm going to make the Garter Squish Afghan by Stephen West. And it's really simple. You just have a main color, and you do garter stitch the whole thing. There's some slip stitches on the edges to finish it, but it's basically just garter stitch. You have a main color that goes all the way through the Afghan, and then you keep swapping out contrasting colors you carry along with that main color. So it's basically you're knitting with two balls of yarn. One's always the main color, and then swapping out that contrasting color. So
that's going to be fun.
And just so our listeners understand what was going on, Kelly and I had a conversation the other day, a math conversation, one of my most favorite conversations to have. And you can help me out
too.
Here, Kelly. I know. It's funny because I just love this type of conversation. So the Afghan calls for, of the main color, 1,620 yards. And equal amount of the contrasting colors and whatever colors you want, but you just need to match that yardage. And then that yardage makes an Afghan. It makes an Afghan 48 inches by 66 inches. But I have the sweater from my father I held Cascade 220 double, and I weighed the sweater. I know, crazy. Anyway, I weighed the sweater, and it weighs 2 pounds, 13.4 ounces. So if I know Cascade 220 is a skein of Cascade 220 is 220 yards. That's why it's called Cascade 220. Mm-hmm. And it's 3.5 ounces a skein. So if I know that, I can figure out my yardage of what's going to be the main color. So the sweater I had 2,828 yards. So I realized if I unravel that sweater and if I just make it the size that they're recommending, I'm still going to have a sweater quantities left over. I'm going to have over 1,200 yards left over. I can make a sweater out of that. Yeah. And I thought I don't want to do that. I want to make an Afghan using all of that yarn. So the conversation
you want to make a 4-pound Afghan.
I want to make a 4-pound.
Almost 6-pound Afghan by the time you put in the other color.
Yes. But here's the thing, as I thought, and so you're supposed to, for the pattern says you're supposed to cast on 126 stitches to make it the 40, what did I say? It was 48 inches wide. Mm-hmm. But I thought if I do that and I just keep knitting until I use up all of my main color blue and the other, it's going to end up looking like a huge giant scarf for what's that new movie that's out about the giant? But anyway, for a giant, so it's going to be really narrow but long, and that's not right. So my conversation with you is how I want to find out how many stitches to cast on to have an Afghan that's in proportion, and using all that yarn. So I don't think we need to go through all the math, right? But we did what we had to do is figure out the square inches of what with the finished size that in the pattern is saying, and then we figured out how many yards. We figured out it was a half a yard per square inch, and then knowing that, then we could figure out how many square inches this Afghan could be. Right? And we figured out, what did we figure it out? It was going to be 5,490 square inches, I think.
Yeah. About 5,400 square inches.
Yeah, about 54. Because also, I have to remember, too, I'm going to have waste. Because there will be waste. But about 5,400 square inches. But then you have to figure out, what shape is that going to be? And so we finally, to make a long story short, we finally decided I need to cast on...
Well... and let me
go ahead.
I'm going to make the long story longer.
Oh, good.
Because we did a very, very mathematical thing that I try to convince my students is very mathematical, but they don't believe me. We did a very mathematical thing by just trying stuff. Like, what two numbers multiplied together to give me 5,400, right? Length times width equals 5,400 square inches. And so... what two things can you multiply together? And we multiplied, we we went backwards looking at a bunch of stuff that multiplies together to be 5,400. And then we picked the one. So basically it was like, let's guess and check, right?
Yeah.
What if we made it this long? How wide would it have to be? What if we made it this long? How wide would it have to be? Mm-hmm. And then we just picked the one that looked like it would be the most pleasing proportions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was totally subjective.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So we decided that I think I was supposed to cast on.
Oh, Marsha, one more thing.
What?
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
We could have used the golden ratio.
What's the golden ratio?
The golden ratio is Leonardo da Vinci and other painters and stuff used for like the pleasing dimensions. Mm-hmm. So the golden ratio, it's not exactly like a 3x5 card, but like 3x5 cards are kind of like the golden ratio. Cereal boxes, a lot of them are made in the dimensions of a golden ratio. It's about, I want to say it's about 1.6. I can't remember the exact. I can't remember the approximate number that it is. There's a few of these numbers in mathematics that get mixed up in my mind. But I think it's about 1.6. Anyway, we did not use the golden ratio. We just kind of eyeballed it and looked and said, "This looks good."
Is the golden ratio, is that whatever like the short side is, there's a percentage of that you would increase it to make the long side?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe it's like 1.6 times one side is the other side.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Or also, I think sometimes too, I'm going to say this about myself, I think sometimes it's just intuitive about how shapes and sizes. You know, like hanging paintings, like some people figure like, they measure and you know what I do? Like I just hold the thing up on the wall and like that looks good, make a mark and then figure out where I need to put the nail. Right. And 9 times out of 10 I'm right. You don't need to, I don't think you really, for me, I think I'm going to sound like I'm really full of myself, but I don't think I need to. I just know what looks right shape-wise.
Yeah.
You know, proportions.
So how many did you cast on and how did you decide?
Well, so I'm not cast on yet, but I think we decided it was supposed to be like 177 stitches. Mm-hmm. That I need to cast on, and we decided we're just going to go either 175 because we thought that was weird. So I'm either going to do 175 or 180. The other thing too, Kelly, I did not mention in our conversation is I have a pair of circular needles, size 15, which is what I need for this afghan that I got at the Goodwill.
Nice.
And I know, and so you know, the thing is, I'm trying not to go buy anything for this, which is just a silly game, but that's my game. I don't want to buy anything, so. And I think it says they have to be 32-inch 15s, and I think they're a little bit longer. I think they're like 36 inches or something, which would be better. But I think that the other thing is, can I get that many stitches on that needle? That's the other question. But anyway, so that was my first thing is I need to figure out how many I'm going to cast on. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is I need to take the sweater apart, which I've not done that yet. I'm going to set aside a day. That's going to be my project, is take that sweater apart. And I think what I'm going to do, and we talked about this, Kelly, is about taking it apart because it's going to be 2 balls of yarn I have to create. I was thinking of just unraveling the whole thing, and you suggested it might be better to unravel it, pull some out, wind both balls at the same time.
Yeah.
And I might even enlist maybe Kim could come and help me, and as we unravel it, she has a ball, I have a ball, and it might be good to have 2 people. So anyway, I need to take it apart. Okay, now then. The next part of the sweater is all my contrasting yarns because I don't want to go buy anything. This is my goal, is to just use it. So I went through my stash of yarn that I've been buying anytime I find wool yarn at the Goodwill or the thrift store, I buy it. So I have quite a bit of, and then also some of the yarn I think I got when I went to a knitting retreat, I got a door prize. And it's Cascade. I have 2... I don't remember now how many of Cascade 220 I have, but all these different worsted weight yarns, which will work for this pattern. And some of the colors I really liked. I have an olive green I think will look nice with the blue of my dad's sweater. I have kind of a rust color, kind of a pumpkin, or kind of a gold color, which is nice. And some of it is lamb's pride too, worsted. But then I had these sort of unknown wools that are worsted weight, but they're really weird colors. I had 2 skeins of an aqua color, which wasn't very pretty. I had one skein of a yellow that looks sort of like a yellow school bus yellow, and then I had traffic cone orange, or maybe like, I don't know, it was like
blaze orange for the
blaze
hunting.
Orange. Yeah, hunting. It was just like a really, really bright, unpleasant orange. So, and then I also had another one. It was just variegated, and I only wanted to use solid colors, and I did not want to use variegated. But what I'm about to tell you, I may change my mind now. So, anyway, the next part of this is when we were at the Black Sheep Gathering last month, we went into a booth, Jorstad Creek Yarns, and Maddie, her name is Maddie Wallace, was in the booth, and we were talking to her about the kits that they have for sale, and she mentioned that they're in Olympia, Washington, and once a month, the first Saturday of the month, they have an over dye Saturday, and so you can bring in your yarn and over dye it.
I think that is so cool.
I went, it's always the first Saturday, but because of the 4th of July weekend, the following Saturday was the 9th. I went. So I drove down to Olympia. And for people who are not in the state or even in this country, Olympia is kind of fun because it's the state capital for the state of Washington. So anyway, I went down there and it was really fun. I had my 5 skeins of yarn. I put some of them in skeins, and then they have this really cool, I don't know what the proper name for it is, but it skeins your yarn, but it's mechanized.
Oh, it's a skein winder.
Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. And you can do 3, she can do 3 at a time.
Yeah, that is cool.
It was very cool. So anyway, I met Maddie down there, and then we did not meet her at Black Sheep, but Carrie Graber. Graber is the owner. And what was really fun, too, is I have a pretty good sense of color, but I'm not, like, I know, for example, if you put blue over yellow, you're going to get green. Mm-hmm. I also know if you put, like, red over green, you're going to get mud, like a muddy color. And I said I wanted to have somewhat bright colors. So it was really nice to work with them because they had ideas that I would not really think of. So I had the 2 skeins of aqua. One we put in black dye, and it turned out this beautiful kind of gray blue. I mean, it's this not ice blue, but like a gray, like
a dusty blue or
like a dusty blue. And the interesting thing I should say too, because they were such intense colors, you have a little bit of that, even though you can't see that aqua or the yellow or the orange, you really can't see it. It has like a glow about it, or that's not even really right. But there's a tonal quality to it that's different. I think that if you just dyed the natural colored yarn,
right. So if you had if you had started with beige and dyed the dusty blue, it wouldn't be quite the same.
Right. Yeah. It adds sort of dimension, I think, to the color.
Cool.
And then this one I never would have thought of, but I think Maddie, or maybe it was, I'm not sure if it was Maddie or if it was Carrie, but I think it was Carrie, suggested with the second skein of aqua to over dye purple. Now, I am not a huge purple fan, but I thought, you know what, I don't care. This yarn costs nothing, pennies, so go try it. And so it's really nice. It turned out purple, but it's kind of a grade purple. It's really pretty. And then the school bus yellow, we over dyed with a blue, tropical blue. So it turned out Kelly green.
Oh, cool.
Really, really fun. And then the other one that was really fun was the orange. And we over dyed that with red. I don't remember the exact name of the red, but red. And it started out almost looking like pumpkin. And but we decided, and then as you can leave it in the bath longer, it absorbs more dye. So you can leave it in just for a short period of time and not let it absorb all the dye. You can let it stay in a longer period of time, absorb all the dye. If you still don't like the color, you take the yarn out, add more dye, and keep intensifying the color until you reach the point where you want to stop. So that was really interesting, just that process of when do you decide to take the yarn out. And then the last skein was the variegated one. It had like a navy blue, a beige, green, I think. So that one we over dyed with the same red that we over dyed the orange. And so, but when you look at it, so the beige became red. The navy blue became purple. It's this deep eggplant color. No, I'm sorry, the blue became kind of the eggplant color, I think. And then the dark navy became almost black. So I wasn't sure if I was going to use it or not, but I think I am going to throw it in there. I'm just going to use it. Yeah, I know. So anyway, but the thing is, I figured out. So if the skeins, I'm some of the skeins I think are about 190 yards, and then the Cascade 220 is 220 yards. I don't think it matters that there is difference. I'm just going to throw them in there.
Yeah.
So I'm figuring it. On average, each skein represents 200 yards. So I need about 14 skeins of yarn, which means I need to dye more yarn. I don't have And so, Kelly, when we had talked about it, I had a skein of kind of a beige color and I had a skein of brown. I was going to throw those in there, but I realized I think I'm not going to use those because the brown I have 6 skeins of that and the beige I have 4, which is enough to make another afghan.
Yeah.
And I also have some beige that I got the first, not this last time at NoCKRs, but a year ago at the NoCKRs retreat, I picked up some beige. And I think that I'm going to try over-dyeing all that and make another afghan. Because I have 1,400 to 1,800 yards of each colorway. So I have a pretty sizable yardage. So I think I might do that. So I went today down into my stash and I have some blanks, some other just white or cream colored wool. I have a Cascade 220 that's undyed, and then some other. I have found 5. I have 5 more skeins of just undyed mystery yarn, or it was not mystery, but just old yarn that I got at the Goodwill. So I'm going to I'll over dye it here at my house. Well, it's actually not technically over dyeing because it has no color, but I'll dye it here. And or I may go back down because it was so much fun going down to the this Jorstad Creek dye studio.
Yeah, so, that sounds fun.
Let me just tell you a little bit about the studio because I think people will be really interested in what they're doing. They're dyeing all of their own yarn in some really nice colors. I did buy a skein of, it's called Cornwall, and it's a fingering weight, and it's 70% blue face Leicester, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere.
Ooh.
And I know. Yummy, huh?
Yes.
And the color is called Flamingo, and it's this kind of orange-pink, sort of like a flamingo, but a little more subdued than that. Because flamingos are pretty bright, right? It's a little more grayed than that, but really pretty, so I did buy that. They specialize in trying to just source yarns from local producers. What they are really featuring are Icelandic wools, Finn and Gotland.
Oh.
And really interesting because you don't really see that. I don't think I've ever seen Finn or Gotland yarn in the store, in a yarn shop.
No. And I know you, from the judging that at the Black Sheep, the judge, Martin Daly, he actually raises now Gotlands and was talking about, he was a merino producer, but when he moved to the Northwest, and he had been down in California, at the University of California somewhere, and had merinos, but when he moved to the Northwest, the merinos are not designed for that climate. And so now he has Gotland, and he said they are very much designed for the climate that you guys have. So I think there are a few Gotland producers in your area besides him. I don't remember exactly where he is, but he's somewhere in the Northwest. And it sounded like that was a breed that was becoming more popular is not the right word, but at least, becoming more known to the area. More known, so that's cool.
Yeah, because you remember, Kelly, at Fiber Fusion last year, I bought a Gotland fleece.
Yes.
And I mentioned this when I was talking to them, and to Carrie and Maddie, that I had bought this Gotland fleece, and I said, because I started to say, and they said, oh yes, because it was featured in it was Gotland fiber was woven. The robes that the characters wore in Lord of the Rings were woven from Gotland. So that's why I bought it, and they all knew all about that. So their yarns are they're not sold nationwide yet. I think that's the goal probably. Right now they're sold at Bazaar Girls in Port Townsend, and then Yorkshire Yarns in Lakewood. And she said they're going to be opening up an Etsy shop too. So
cool.
So that's cool. The other thing I wanted to mention, too, is that they participate in a group called the BK Collective, and it's a group of designers in the Olympia area that are creating patterns. A lot of the patterns they're working with Carrie to use her yarns. And so you could check out their patterns on Ravelry. Their patterns are on Ravelry, Pattern Fish, and Love Knitting. Anyway, 2 of the designers were in the shop that day. Kaya Peterson, she's Cayenne Pepper on Ravelry, and Jan Hoppler, who's JMH Knits on Ravelry. And I looked up their patterns, and they have some really cute patterns.
Okay.
So I would recommend taking a look at those. Kaya has a scarf and a cowl called Garrison Street Fingering Weight scarf and cowl, which is very nice. Jan has a shawl on there that I thought was really nice called Ebb and Flow shawl. They have lots of other patterns, but those are 2 that really stood out. And Carrie has a cute hat that she's done called the Troslov hat. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation. It's TR and then A with the umlaut above it, SLOV. But it's a very cute hat. So I wanted to just mention those patterns in particular that I thought were really nice. And then they have events coming up. On their page, they have a list of the events that they're going to, but they're going to be at Stitch and Pitch at the Mariners game on July 19th, and they're going to be selling their yarns at the Mariners game. And then the other event they're going to have is a trunk show on July 30th at Yorkshire Yarns in Lakewood, and they're also rolling out a new yarn called Oli Granoli, and it's so I love the name of that, so I want to check that out when that is available.
How fun!
And so anyway, it's a great shop, and if anybody has a chance to visit them, they have limited hours. They're just open on Fridays and Saturdays from 11 to 6. So a little bit limited hours, but I think it's really a fun place to go. And the other thing, though, I forgot to mention is when you go on for the Overdye Saturday, there's no charge. They don't charge you anything for this. They just ask that you make a donation to Click for Babies. And Kelly, you've heard of this organization, haven't you, where they're making hats for newborns that go home with the newborn and the parents. And she said they also are giving them a DVD about shaken baby syndrome. And so it's all about educating parents about what it's like to have a crying baby and
they call
what
it
you can
the
do.
Purple period.
Right, the purple period.
Where the babies are just crying.
And actually, I didn't realize either. I was reading this, that the letters of purple stand for peak of crying, unexpected, resist soothing, pain-like face, long-lasting, and evening. So, like the evening that your baby... I've heard that, like, colicky babies, they cry more in the evening than they do at other times. And the P in purple... their face turns purple because they're, or the pain-like face because they're crying so much their face kind of turns purple.
Okay. I wondered why the purple, I had heard about Click for Babies and I knew what it was about. And I know that when you make hats for them, they want you to put a certain percentage of the yarn for the baby hats to be purple. But I sort of didn't know that there was a meaning to the color that had, an acronym. So that's interesting to know.
Now Ben, when he was a baby, I mean, he didn't have that the colicky thing where he would cry and and sometimes it says it can last 5 hours.
Yeah, that's
the L stands for long. Yeah, horrific. The L stands for long lasting. Can 5 hours a day they can cry.
Yeah,
and now he didn't have that, but the combination of a crying baby, lack of sleep, hormones a little out of whack. Now this is getting, but kind of grieving for you're excited about this new baby and you love this new baby, but you're kind of grieving for the life you don't have anymore.
Right.
You can just go out to a movie anytime you want,
Right.
And I remember there's one time when Ben was crying and crying and crying, and I had to say to Paul, you need to come and take the baby now. Because I had this feeling like I wanted to take him and throw him out the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved him, but I couldn't take it anymore. Yeah. So 5 hours of that, you have to. It's really a serious thing.
Well, it sounds like they're contributing to a really good cause with this project.
Yeah, really good. They just asked for a donation, and
wow,
yeah. So it was really fun.
I
want to
go.
Event. Well, come on up, Kelly.
Yeah. Maybe my next trip I'll have to make it work around the first Saturday of the month.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was just really fun, and they were so great too. As I said, it was really nice to have someone to talk to about the colors because they have such a good color sense. Where I kind of know, but Well, really what it was? They had such confidence around their color sense. I was willing for me just to let go and say, oh yeah, put it in the black. Oh, put it in the red.
Yeah.
Where, if it was me at home, I would be second guessing myself the whole time. Mm-hmm. So it was just really fun.
It made you more willing to experiment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you had a guide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
So anyway, and then I have one last thing I just want to mention. Fiber in the Wild. I was in the car and I was listening to the BBC World Service, and they had a story about sheep on the Faroe Islands. So I actually had to look up the Faroe Islands because I was not sure where they were, but they're north of Scotland, halfway between Iceland and Norway. And there's about 18 islands, or it says 18 major islands. It has a population of about 50,000 as of 2015, but they have 70,000 sheep.
Oh my God.
And when I looked it up on Wikipedia, what I was really intrigued by is their coat of arms is a ram.
Oh, nice.
So apparently wool plays an important part in their culture. But what the story was about is Google Maps has gone all over the world with their cars, with their 360-degree cameras on them, taking pictures of mapping the world, right? Mm-hmm. But the one place they have not gone is the Faroe Islands. So they had the idea of putting a 360 camera on top, strapping it to the back of a sheep. And they send the sheep out.
Oh, my gosh.
And they are taking pictures. So now they're collecting that video. They also, this is interesting, too, to power the camera, because how long is the sheep going to be out there? And they are transmitting this information wirelessly, I guess, to someone back at the city to upload this information. They actually have solar panels on the sheep too, on this little jacket that they wear.
Oh my God.
Within this camera. And so they're sending them out to just go out and do what sheep do.
Sheep labor.
Yes. So I thought so this is what I originally heard on the radio, and I thought it was such an intriguing idea that I had to then go look up the Faroe Islands. And so that's what I learned, that that their coat of arms is a ram, mm-hmm. and with their population ratio, people to sheep.
Oh my gosh.
Which is really interesting. So a lot of interesting things. You should go there and just look at the pictures. In fact, maybe I'll try and post some pictures of the Faroe Islands. Unbelievably gorgeous. It's very rocky and craggy, and it has these huge cliffs that are just those kind of cliffs where it's just straight down to the water.
Wow.
I mean, beautiful. Kelly, now you would hate this, but to me it sounds like heaven. The average high temperature in August, you want to know what it is? 55 degrees.
Oh, good Lord, that sounds like here this week.
But just think of all the sweaters you could wear.
Yes, that's true.
And I had to laugh. The record high is 71 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
And now this would also drive you nuts too. Probably this would drive a lot of people nuts, but to me it sounds kind of like a little bit like heaven a little bit. That the average precipitation is 210 days a year.
Holy.
That is a lot of rain.
That is a lot of rain. That does not sound like heaven at all. I sure hope heaven's not like that, because if it is, I'm not going.
But it sounds like, but it was interesting to me that, it's because it's north, its location being north of Scotland, in between Iceland and Norway, you think it would be really, really cold, but it never really drops, now I've forgotten the temperature, but it really doesn't drop below freezing very much.
Because
very
of the water, maybe.
Yeah, it's very sort of temperate. But I thought that was interesting. So now, but the last thing I want to tell you, which I thought was interesting about this, I looked it up online, was about their sweaters. Because I thought, well, if they have all this wool, they must have some traditional clothing. And they do have their traditional sweaters. That the technique is like Fair Isle, where you're carrying color across. But they said, don't call it Fair Isle, because it's not Fair Isle. And I think the difference, I looked up some of the sweaters, and I think the difference is Fair Isle seems to be bands of pattern, different bands of pattern. So a Fair Isle sweater may have 5 or 6 different designs, bands that they combine. This one, they seem like they just have one pattern they repeat over and over again, so it becomes very geometric. But this is the thing. Now I'm really going off a little bit. This has really, well, it's just kind of interesting to me. I had never heard of this series, but there's a Danish television series. Don't know what it is in Danish, but the English title is called The Killing. And the main character is a policewoman named Sarah Lund. And she wears a pharaoh-style sweater in this TV series. And I looked up and you can get a free pattern to make the sweater if you want. Because this sweater, this TV series apparently was a huge hit in Britain and, well, most of Europe. And people were really intrigued by the sweater. So someone has come up with a pattern. And if you go to pharaohknitting.com, so Faroe knitting.com, there's a woman named Hannah. Her Ravelry name is Hannah M, so HANNAM, and she has a free pattern for this sweater.
Oh, cool!
So it's kind of cool. So there's even a video I saw of the actress. Her name is Sophie Graybull. She's a Danish actress. There's a YouTube video of her wearing the sweater that she wears in the TV series. And there's a picture of her presenting the same sweater to, I'm drawing a blank on her name, Prince Charles's wife, Camilla. Presenting her with one of these sweaters.
Oh my gosh.
So, but then the other thing I was going to say, and this part I thought was I was laughing about, is the reason why the people had her wear that sweater is the character is supposed to be so involved with her police work that is not concerned with her appearance, and she doesn't have a romantic life, and so they wanted something to convey lack of sexuality. So they put her in this sweater, and I'm like, okay, you know what? We need to rebel against this.
This is like Michelle Obama bringing back the cardigan.
Yeah. Sweaters are cool. So to say that a hand-knit sweater is not sexy, come on,
Yeah.
No.
4 million plus people on Ravelry, let's set them straight.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just thought I kind of went down a rabbit hole by listening to that story, but it made me really kind of think, well, where are the Faroe Islands? What's going on? Anyway, well, yeah, it was very cool.
You really did your research for that fiber in the wild, Marsha. That was great.
Anyway, so that's really all I have to talk about. So,
okay.
In terms of my fiber adventures, Kelly, so is there anything else that you want to talk about? I know we've been sort of following our listeners and our people who've been posting things in our Ravelry group. Should we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that would
be kind of fun.
That would be great. I wanted to mention a couple of things that I've seen in the group, the forum. In the part of, I think I mentioned this before to people, but there is a little feature in Ravelry where you can, when you go to our group page on the right-hand side, you can see what people have shared. And in your own project page, there's a little place where you can say groups you can share with a group. And so we have a few people who have shared things that I just wanted to point out because I think they're very cool. So first of all, Straight Fork, who was one of our winners and got that cotton, the Regia Perfect cotton where you make two socks the exact same matching color.
Oh, right. Right.
She got that yarn and she started a pair of socks. And I'll be really interested to see what she thinks of them because cotton yarn for socks is not usually people's first choice, but I really like the idea of having cotton socks. So I haven't bought any of this yarn, but I think for myself, but I think I would like to try it. And so I'm anxious to see what she thinks about those socks and how they feel, once you get them done. So that was one of the projects that I really liked. And then there have been some really cool spinning, because it's Tour de Fleece, some really cool spinning projects that have been shared with the group in that little section. This is not in the discussion posts. I just like to look at these pictures. So Blarney Yarn is one of our group members, and she has posted quite a few spinning pictures that she's been doing for Tour de Fleece. I'm assuming she's doing it for Tour de Fleece. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, she has some beautiful yarns. 2-ply fingering and just a couple of different plied yarns that I think are really, really gorgeous. So check out hers. We have another person who hasn't shared before with us, I don't think. Agnes Ogmusen. Agnes Ogmusen is what her Ravelry name is. And she shared 2 projects, and one of them is a sweater that's a lace design, a lace motif, and the lace motif gets bigger and bigger as the sweater goes down. So it's one of the kind of sweaters that I really like. Kind of oversized and comfortable looking, and just like a wide collar, just really pretty lace pattern. And it's called the pattern name. I guess I should tell people it's called Temple Blomst. Or Temple Flower by Annette Danielson. So I thought that was cool. And then the other project that she shared, I thought, oh, this would be perfect for the next baby shower I go to. It's a little square of knitting that you do in double knit, which would be fun because I haven't done double knit before. And then you have like a pocket, right? An opening in this little square. So it's just maybe a 4-inch square. That's a little pocket. And then you put this crinkly stuff inside the pocket and then you sew it up. So you know how Enzo really likes to play with like a plastic water bottle, you know, things that when you
make sound.
So I could just imagine that a baby would love something like this. You pick it up, it's just like your other stuffed soft things or blanket or whatever. But when you pick it up, it makes a crinkly noise. The other thing that was shared that I just want to mention is from Tug's owner. She's doing a custom fit, and I was just thinking about a custom fit and how I want to do another one of those. And she's got really detailed notes about this custom fit that she finished. It was her first one, and it looks really pretty. It's a blue sweater cardigan sweater with chevrons, kind of a lace chevron design on the front. Really pretty.
Yeah, very nice.
So I thought that was really cool. And then the other thing that I just wanted to mention is, and this is making me a little bit jealous, Dagger 51, Dagmar, our friend who we've met at the NoCKRs retreat, she has finished her Cancun. And I wanted to make that Cancun. It's a lacy, kind of boxy, lacy pattern. And I mentioned it, remember, because we saw one at the NoCKRs retreat. Well, apparently lots of people saw it at the NoCKRs retreat. And I'd like to think it was because of us, but like the week after we talked about it, the week after the NoCKRs retreat and we talked about it, it was in the top 10 on Ravelry.
Oh, really?
I'd like to think that was because of us. I have a feeling not, but...
Oh, yeah, this is very cool.
But it's like a lace sampler, but you make it into a sweater, and it's good for cotton. And so anyway, I'm jealous because I haven't started mine yet, and I have been wanting to make one for a while. So those are some patterns of projects that people are making in our group that they've shared with us, and I think they're really worth taking a look at. In your Ravelry time, if you look at the projects that have been shared with the group, you might get some really good ideas. Of course, if you don't want your queue to grow,
right?
If you already have enough things in line, you maybe don't want to. But especially now with Tour de Fleece, lots of people are sharing yarn, and that's always fun to look at the things that people have spun. So
yeah, there's some really nice projects and patterns that people are sharing. So
yeah, it's just another way to interact with the group. You don't have to post anything; just share your project, because Marsha and I really like to look at other people. We like to eavesdrop on other people's work.
Yeah, we're a little voyeuristic. We like to stalk our listeners.
That's right. Yeah. But in a good way.
Yeah. We promise we won't be showing up at your house, you know.
Right. At least not for a while.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. And then the only other thing I just wanted to do was, and this is maybe a bad thing for both of us to think about, but it is a true thing. The year is half over. And my summer is half over. So given the fact that those two things are both half over, what have I gotten accomplished?
Yes, what have I accomplished? Well, I don't know. You think of all that you've made. Are we thinking, what have you accomplished knitting-wise, craft-wise?
Just, well, in general, yeah, both. I mean, I think of both. In the summer, I think of both. Like, what are all the things I wanted, like cleaning closets and all that kind of stuff that you think about doing in the summer because you don't really feel like doing it during the school year. And I've gotten some of that stuff done. But it always, it's kind of like a nice check-in point to kind of check in with yourself about where you are and what you want to do and what you still have to get accomplished. So... yeah. It's also kind of a sad little point that the summer's half over.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Kelly.
You're welcome.
That's a downer.
I know, isn't that a downer? So, but I do...
No, actually, it just motivates us. Like, oh my gosh, the summer's half over, we better get going, I
am kind of motivated, and Kelly, who is Shorty Sutures on Ravelry, I listened to her podcast, Shorty Sutures, and she has been for a while now talking about quilting, and she was talking about using quilt squares and a quilt top that she's had for quite a while, and that made me start thinking about the quilt project that I talked about at the beginning of the year, that I need, I need to decide what I'm going to do with it, and what I want to do with it is finish it. But I'm not sure that's actually going to happen. I haven't ever been sure that was actually going to happen. So then it's giving me sort of inspiration to take out that quilt and the year's half over and I haven't touched it. So I need to take that out and look at what I've got, and kind of like with your dad's sweater. You've actually made some progress on your year-long goal. With the sweater project, and you talked a lot about it in this episode. Right. So maybe I'll drag out that quilt and assess where I am and start making plans and have something to report back for the next episode.
Yeah. I was actually thinking, a goal. My goal is to finish it by the end of the year, because that's, but my father's birthday was October 20th. And now that might be too soon, but I was thinking that'd be kind of cool if I could set that goal of finishing it by his birthday.
That would be fun, yeah.
But I don't know if I can or not. Yeah. That's not, because what is this, June?
Well,
so is that 4 months?
We're in July, Marsha. We're in July.
Oh, we're in July.
We're almost halfway through July. I hate to break the news to you, but...
I think I had in my mind, because you were talking about June 30th being the halfway point. Yeah, we're in July, so that's 7, so I've got 3 months, right?
Yeah, August, September.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, August, September, a little bit of October, a little bit of July left. 3 months.
Yeah, so I don't know if I can do it in 3 months, but we'll see. I don't know. It's obviously it's not going to be it's social knitting in the sense that it's not complicated, but I think it's going to reach a point where it's so massive,
right?
When I can't carry
it's going to take up 3/4 of the sofa. So
yeah,
it'll be social knitting, but people who are social with you are going to have to sit very far away.
Yeah, right. It's not going to be like plain knitting or anything like that. No. You can't take it on the plane. Yeah.
True.
So
yeah,
right.
maybe next episode, I'm not making any promises, but maybe next episode I'll have at least some progress on the quilt project that I talked about, because it would be nice to get that to get some progress done on that quilt.
All right.
So I think that's it for me.
All right, that's it for me too.
All right.
We'll talk in 2 weeks.
Sounds great.
And knit a lot. Keep knitting. Or no, keep spinning. We have 2 weeks of spinning.
Yeah, right? Just keep spinning. Just keep spinning.
All righty. We'll talk then.
Okay, Marsha.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Marsha and Kelly can both be found on Ravelry and Instagram. Marsha is M. Fusel. That's MFUESEL. And Kelly is 100 Projects. That's the number 100 Projects. We'd love to be social with you on those social media sites, especially our Two Ewes Fiber Adventures Ravelry group. The podcast can be found on iTunes, the blog, or in the Ravelry group. So until next time, we're the Two Ewes, doing our part for World Fleece. Our music is Spanish Mood by Plastic 3.